Hello, my name is Drew, and this morning I'm going to be taking you through the basics of building applications in WorkXpress. The wiki has a lot of information on it about how to do this, but I wanted to show the first few steps taken when building most any application to try and help get started. So I've gone ahead and signed up for a trial, and you'll see here my trial email has two areas of credentials, one for developing my application and one for performing systems admin. Now I want to actually jump right in and start developing my application. So I'm going to use this top link. It's going to open a new tab and take me to the login for my application. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy this password out because it's tough for me to remember. Put in my email address and my password, and it will log me right in. I'm first presented with a series of questions here about background color and navigation type. So I like the gray. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And then for navigation, you have two options, tabs or menus. If you want to do one tab per table, for instance, a tab for accounts and a different tab for contacts, choose tab navigation. If you'd like to do a departmental tabs, like one tab for accounting, one tab for sales, marketing, one tab for development, you want to choose tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and choose tabs and hit finish because that's what I want to do for my application. Please note it's pretty easy to build a menu underneath tabs, and tabs are quite popular these days, so that's likely going to be the choice that you want to make. So now I'm here in my application with no tables built. There's no structure built hardly at all except for my new tab here. But first thing I need to do is change my password, as the email said. So top right corner, view my user profile. It's going to take me to a page about me. Here's my name, my email address, my username and password info. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that and change this password out to something that I will remember. And it's changed. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, go back to my opening page here. I'm going to use the tools across the bottom to create my first table. Now, again, the wiki has a lot of information about the details of these tools. My goal here is just to show you the basics. So my first table is going to be account. And now I need to choose an icon to represent each account record in my system. I'll choose the briefcase. And now it's asking me what fields I want to add to my table. I've already got the account name field, so I don't need to add that. But I do want to add primary phone. Choose a phone number field. Mailing address. Choose an address field for that. And annual revenue, if I'm lucky enough to know it for my account. I'll choose currency. Please note that this is sort of akin to adding columns to a table or adding fields in the data model for this new table I'm creating account. And here I have a choice about which interface to use. Because I'm using tabs, I'm going to allow the system to create their own tab for accounts. I could give them a menu item, or I could set up the interface entirely myself, but the system does a lot of work for us, and I want to leverage that. So I'm going to go ahead and choose create their own tab. And now it asks me which type of interface I'd like. The left side, a list page with a view and edit details page and an add page, is going to build all the basics for creating, updating, and deleting records in my table. The choice on the right, the list with inline add and edit, would do the same, but it's going to create them all with one page in one list, which would be really nice for a very small table that I didn't really do a whole lot with. If I had maybe 3 or 4 fields and I was just referencing them, but I wasn't really doing a lot of work with them, then this would be the right choice. But for my 2 tables this morning, I'm going to be choosing the left side because we're going to do a fair amount of work with them. So I hit finish, and now the system is building all the interfaces for me. It's creating my table, my fields. It's creating everything I need to work with accounts. When that's done, it takes me to the page that shows my list of accounts. here's each one. It creates a sample record for me. And oh boy, it sure would be nice if this was one of my accounts. Their annual revenue, a mere 167 million. Not too shabby. Please note that it's going to go ahead and create the filtering for me. So if I want to search my list of accounts, say I have hundreds of accounts and I want to filter them down, make it easier to find one, it's going to create all the filtering that I need here. And for each one, there's a separate set of things I can search by. So if I want to see all accounts where annual revenue is greater than $1 million, I can do that. You can create multiple search filters and filter it down from there if that search returns more than what you're looking for. You can also edit each filter. I also have a link here to view my account. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. This account is called, this is a sample record, just so you all know that it's the very first sample account. And you'll notice here on the view page that I have all the fields that I created when I set up the table are all ready for me to go ahead and edit, make changes to, and save, so I can work with this individual account. Down here in this empty space, we can create more fields, we can create lists, we can create other field grids, calendars, all sorts of different types of forms, and we'll get to a few of those later. So back on my list page, you'll notice the last thing about this page is I've got an Add Account button in the top right. If I click that, it will bring up a page that allows me to add a brand new account, which I'm going to go ahead and do. And we'll set the revenue at 1.25 million. Now, when I go to save this, I have some options. I can add in and view my new account, or I can add another account if I want to do many accounts all sort of rapid fire, or I can add and close. I'm going to choose add and close, which is going to create my new record and reload my list. So we'll notice here we've got my new account, McLean Inc., all set to go. I can click here and edit the details of it, or I can add another one, and continue about my day. Last feature there, the delete. Simply check the box next to each account you'd like to delete and click the delete button. So now we have all the interfaces we need to work with accounts in their most basic form. An application with only one table isn't so interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and create a second one. In this case, contact. Company is only as good as the people who work at it, right? So I'd like to know some information about them. And I'm going to go ahead and choose, for contact, I'm going to choose the guy in the suit with the briefcase to represent each and every contact. Now I've got my contact name field, which is pretty good, but in the case of a person, a lot of times you need to be able to reference their first or last name separately. So I'm going to go ahead and create fields for first and last name, both short text. Then I'm going to create primary phone, email address, and job title. Chose the wrong type. Now those columns will go ahead and get added to my table. I want contact to have its own tab. And I want to do the full interface. Now that first name field, contact name, is a very important field because it's used here in the view area. So what I'm going to want to do is actually take the first name entered and the last name entered and combine them together to make my account name, or my contact name, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this initial contact because I don't need him. I'm going to add myself as a new contact. You'll notice when the screen comes up, I have to fill in both the contact name, first name, and last name. So that's double data entry, which we're not really going to want to do that. So I'm going to use a action to reduce that amount of work. So here we are, I'm on my contact page. You can see the details for contact McLean, Drew. So I've got the contact name, which is also here at the top of the screen, as well as my first name, last name, phone number, email address, and job title. Now, because I don't want to do the double data entry here, and I can see the contact name up top, I'm going to go ahead and remove the contact name field from my view page. There we go. Now when I edit a contact, I don't have to worry about that extra field. On my ad screen, however, it's also going to be there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my ad screen and remove it from here also. It's important to understand that the field still exists. It's just that we removed it from these interfaces. So now I have a dilemma. I don't want to have to enter the contact name, last name, first name, but I want it to be set automatically when I add my contact. So we're going to use an action to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the automation layer, which is going to show me everywhere that actions can run. These here are attached to the fields, and these represent actions that can run when the field itself saves. This point here is for when this form saves, but I want to do this all the time. Anytime a contact is created or updated, I want to reset this contact name field because they might have changed the first name or last name. So you'll notice there's also page level actions. I'm going to go ahead and click on this bottom point, which is going to bring up the actions interface for the page in the form security area, and that's because this form has a security action pre-built for you that allows the page to appear in ad mode. We were on an ad page. But the action I want to add is on save. So here it shows the page itself called add a contact when that is saved, and then it goes through each child form under the page and saves that. So right now we only have one field grid called contact info, and when that's saved, it has these 5 fields on it, and each of them are saved. Now, because we're making changes to a contact record, there's also a grouping of actions that are executed for contact. Anytime a contact is updated on any page in the system, these actions will run, and that's where I want to put my new action. So on the left here, you'll see there's a toolbox of available action types. We have actions that allow you to create records, or work with records rather, create them, delete them, import them. You can work with relationships, fields. You can evaluate values, communicate with external systems via email, SMS. You could generate a report and email that out. There's logic controls and ways to integrate. I just want to set a field value. So I'm going to choose Save Value under Fields. When I click and drag, it gives me a bunch of areas where I can drop this action to go ahead and create it. So you'll notice the orange drop points, they represent the areas attached to field saving. The blue ones are for when the forms save, and we have one for the contact info form and one for the add a contact page. And then we have the red ones, which we term global, or the ones attached to the table. And this action is going to run anytime this table is worked with. So I'm going to drop it in the bottom because I want this action to run anytime contact is created or updated. So it asks me, what field do I want to set? Well, I want to set the contact name field. So I'll choose that. And now it asks, what value do I want to set into the selected field? Well, I don't have a value that represents my contact name yet, so I need to build it. So I'll open up this drop-down, which is going to allow me to either query values directly, type a value in, or calculate one, which in this case I need to calculate one. And this is going to give you a series of functions that you can run: text functions, math functions, currency, date, or I can build my own formula, which allows very advanced functionality. In this case, I just want to do a text function, and I want to concatenate together my last and first name. So I'm going to choose concat. And this interface is going to walk me through all the various pieces I need. So first I need to query a value. Off my contact, I want to grab last name. That will be the first thing in my value. Then I want to add a comma space. I can just type that. Now I want to add the first name, which is also something I can pull off of my contact. And that's it. So I'm going to take last name, comma space, first name, and save it into my contact name field. And you'll notice that it produces an expression value here that it shows in function form what that's going to look like. Now I can describe my action, make sort of a comment out of it. So I want to say set the contact name to last, comma, first. That will help me remember what this action does. And I'll save. So here it is in my tree of things that are going to happen when the page saves. The page is going to start to save. It's going to save the form, which is going to save the first name value, last name value, primary phone, email, and job title. And then it's going to run a series of actions, which right now is only to set the contact name to last, comma, first. So I'm done here on my Actions Manager. I'll close that down. And now you'll notice I'm back on my ad page. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my mom. And she is a teacher. So I'm going to add and close. Now it's going to save my record, and it's set my name, my contact name, to McLean, comma, Judy. On the view page, I still only have my first and last name, but you'll notice McLean, comma, Judy is set in the contact name field. We can verify that by putting the contact name field back on the interface to make sure that the value is actually in there. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and toggle the presentation layer, which is going to bring up an overlay that allows me to add fields or edit the details of fields. I'll go ahead and add it to the end of my form. It's an existing field, so I'll choose that. It's on the contact table. And here's a list of all the fields that I've created so far. I'm going to choose contact name. And that will just drop it in there. So now we can see the contact name field definitely set McLean, comma, Judy. And we're all ready to go there. I'm going to go ahead and detach that field because I don't want it to stay there. Okay. So now we've created two tables, accounts and contacts. Now it's time to tie them together. So I'm going to go over to my account, McLean Inc. And I really want here to make a list of contacts that are employees of my account, McLean Inc. So we do that with a list form. I'm going to go ahead and click Create a Form. And it's going to ask me which kind I want. I want a list. There are many kinds, and the configuration of each of these is reviewed on the wiki docs, and it also helps you through the process as you create each type. So feel free to experiment with them. First, it's going to ask you where I want to put the field or the form, and I want to put it after my account info form. So click there on the plus. Now it needs to know which contacts I want to, which records I want to see in my list, and I want to see contact records. It needs to know which contact records to show. So I can either show all of them in the entire system, or I can choose contacts that are related only to this account. But I don't have any relation types built yet. Or I can build a custom query to show, say, contacts and filter them, or anything more complicated than an all or related records. I need to use a custom query to handle that. For what I need to do, though, I want to create a new relation type. It's going to tie them together. So here it allows me to choose which types which tables I want on each side of my relationship. So on one side I want account, on the other side I want contact, and I can choose names for what this relationship means. So my account is going to actually be an employer, a company that employs people, and my contact side is going to be an employee. Now it asks me to name the field, or the form. Well, I want to call this employees because it's going to be a list of employees. Next it asks which columns I want to see in my list. Well, I certainly want the view a contact link, which is going to allow me to jump over to my contact view page. I also want to see email address, phone number, and job title of my contact. Now maybe I want my job title to be first. I messed up the order. I can either X them and reselect them, which will put them in the right order, or I can drag and drop the column order before I even get started. So now my form is ready to be created, and it brings up this screen to allow you to review all of the settings. For now, I'm going to accept all of the defaults. As you gain more experience with the system, there may be certain settings you always turn on and off, and you may want to tweak them before you even create the form. But the defaults are pretty good. So here we go. I now have a list form that shows contact name, job title, email address, and primary phone for each of my related contacts, but I don't have any. So I've got two buttons at the top, find and attach as an employee, and add a new employee. So I'm going to go ahead and find and attach myself as an employee, and this is going to bring up a list of all the contacts in the system. I'm going to choose McLean Drew and click the button that says relate as an employee. So what this is going to do is create a relationship between the employee, the contact McLean Drew, and the account McLean Inc. That relationship can be used for queries, or it can be simply destroyed by checking here and clicking remove. This is only going to remove the relationship and not actually affect the contact itself in any direct way. Now that's all fine and good if the contact you want to relate already exists, but what if you're creating a new account and you need to create all new employees? Well, that's what this button here is for. Add a new employee is going to bring up your add page for contact, and it's also going to handle creating the relationship for you. So I'm going to use my dad. And we'll make him CEO. So now I'm going to go ahead and add and close. And that's created my dad, McLean Joe, as a contact, and it's related him directly to this account. So I can fire away multiple contacts, relating them each to my account here. I can also check and remove them. I can click on the email address to bring up a new email to this person, or I can click on the contact to take me to the details page for that contact, which I'm going to do now. So here I am on a page about McLean Drew, and it shows all the details about me, but we don't know who I'm employed by, who my employer is. The relationship exists, but there's nothing in the interface to show that that relationship exists, and I want to see that. Now for my contacts, I'm going to build software that only allows each contact to be associated with one account. It's quite possible I could be associated with many accounts, but in this case, I'm going to constrict it down to only one. So because of that, I'm going to create a field, a selection field, that's going to allow me to pick who my employer is. So new field, I'm going to put it on the end here. I'm going to put it on the contact table. Now I'm going to pick employer as the name, and when I choose my type, I'm going to pick selection. Employer is a fine name. And now it's going to ask me where I want to get my options from. If I want to be able to pick records in the database, I'll choose from the database. If I just want a static set of things like statuses, for instance, if you're building a task and you want it to have unassigned, open, closed, completed, you choose static list. But in my case for employer, I want to choose records from the database. I'm only going to allow one selection. And I want to use a drop-down list. Now it's asking me where the records should come from, and I want to pick from a list of accounts. Here it's going to ask which accounts to show, and what I want to do is show all accounts. Because I want to be able to pick from any account in my account list when I'm setting up the employer for my contact. And now it's going to ask me if I want the selection field to automatically manage a relationship. In this case, I do. What this means is if I create a contact on its own, not from the account page, and I select an employer when I create that contact, it's going to create the relationship between the contact and the account for me. And that's all that goes into creating a selection field. So go ahead and save that. Now you'll notice my employer field here is empty. That's because when I related McLean Drew to my account, the field didn't exist. So it's sort of a chicken and the egg problem with data there. So I'm going to go ahead back to my account, McLean Inc. I'm going to remove this relationship. So I'm no longer employed by McLean Inc. And then I'm going to go ahead and reattach myself. Now when I go over to McLean Drew, you'll notice my employer is filled in. Similarly, if I were to edit the McLean Drew contact and clear out the employer field, if I go over to my account and look at McLean Inc., the relation is gone. So this is the way that you can set it up such that you have a many-to-one relationship where you can have many employees, but each contact is only associated with one employer. And you can manage that either from the account screen or the contact screen, and the data will all stay in sync. That's about all the time I have for this morning, but I wanted to just show you the basics of setting up an application with two tables, accounts and contacts, that are related to each other, have a list and a picker, and then also I wanted to show some basics of actions. Hope this was helpful, and I'll speak to you soon.